Welcome back, YouTube. Hope you are doing well. This isn't necessarily education, and this and the next video, to be fair, in terms of the educational series, are more life lessons or things that are more personal to me and things that have helped me develop as an individual, as a coach. So yeah, you'll probably get some education from this along the way. And before we start the video, I just want to apologise for the very nasally voice. If you feel or you hear that I have to take a bit of a breath every now and then, or I'm getting out of breath, I am full of a cold this week, unfortunately. But in today's video, we are going to be talking about how competing made me a better coach. And this is quite a good one to make, because it made me realise there is a lot more to know and a lot more as a coach to understand when you do something like a competition prep. So the first slide is the reality check, and like I've just said, before competing, I thought that I knew what discipline meant. I thought, yeah, I can diet, I can build, but prep and, well, the whole season really, not just the prep, the off season as well. It really helped teach me kind of what it took to reach my full potential. And I feel like there's so many individuals, including myself for so many years, that thought they were doing the most or thought that they were reaching their kind of natural limit. But when you do fully lock in and you take it to that next level, not necessarily like your training intensity or how structured you are with your days, but just like the discipline, being literally tied down to one goal. And that, I think for me, came with maybe like the weekends being just the same as the weekdays. Okay, so I wouldn't be maybe going out as much on the weekends. I wouldn't be having off-plan meals for the sake of it. Everything was just like ruthless. Okay, like as in consistently ruthless. Which then takes us on to our next slide, is about being ruthless. Sometimes you've just got to be ruthless, not with others, not being like a dickhead, but just with yourself. If you set something, a goal, whether that be a photo shoot or a competition prep or even just a diet, just be ruthless. I use that word so many times because it's a very deep and meaningful word for me. Be ruthless with your standards, be ruthless with your execution, and be ruthless when it comes to being uncomfortable. And what I mean by this is, like, if you set out to do something, don't just do it half-heartedly. Don't just do it at even 90%. Do it at 100%. Life is so short in retrospect. And, if you can't commit to one goal, or anything in life for that matter, business, relationships, fitness journeys, physique development, and give it 100%, you'll always live in that kind of, oh, what if I just did this? Or what if I just did that? Or what? And that's how I was for years. I'd always be like, oh, but what if I actually pushed a little bit harder in the gym? When you get into the back end of a set, for example, on a leg press or a hack squat, and you will stop sometimes. You think, oh, I know I could have done one more there. And this mindset for me this year was like, what if I just did everything to my 100% maximum capability? What would happen? And lo and behold, I got in the best shape of my life. I came second in my first show, and I came first in my second and third show. So 2 golds and 1 silver for my first competitive season with having this mindset, this ruthless mindset. I was pretty impressed with. I was still pretty pissed off that I didn't get gold in the first one, but we can't have it all. Normalizing hard takes us on to the next slide. So prep reminded me that it's supposed to be hard. And I say this to my guys all the time, like, when we're dieting, we need to start normalizing things like, feeling hungry when we're at the back end of a prep, feeling full when we're at the back end of a building phase. Like, normalize this shit. Don't be like, oh, the world's against me. Oh, it's just me that feels like this. Like, putting yourself into a position of uncomfort is what's going to allow you to grow. Okay, it's not all the easy stuff, or it's not all the stuff that's, oh yeah, anyone can go to the gym. Anyone can stick to a meal plan. Not many people can go to the gym and absolutely train their bollocks off. And not many people can stick to their meal plan for 28 weeks, okay? So there's a very big difference in regards to most people and people that want to take it to that next level. You are going to feel tired. You do question yourself about certain things, but nothing worth having is ever easy. These moments are when you separate wanting it from earning it, okay? So again, if it was easy, most people would be on stage winning gold medals, but you have to embrace and lean into the hardship. Or if it was easy, most people would be doing photo shoots and getting into the best shape of their lives. But they're not, because it's hard. We need to normalize that as well. And if you are someone who wants to exceed in life in any avenue, embrace the hard shit. Pushing harder. There's always another gear. And this is something that I always say to my clients when they're training. And even to myself when I'm training, there's always one more rep. There will always be one more rep in the gym. And you know, training's a really good analogy to use for most things. Like, there's always an extra gear in everything that you do, you know, in terms of your sleep, your nutrition, your, you know, commitment to just your schedule through the week. There's always one more gear. And you know, training I like to use as the analogy, because I always say to my guys when they send me training clips across, or when I train with them in the gym, if I had a gun to your head, or even, you know, maybe not to your head, but to like your family's head, I always use this analogy in the gym. And when, you know, when it's a tough set and I know I need to get after it, it's a very dramatic analogy, and some people think you're fucking weird for saying things like this. But I just, like, if I really, really need this set or this extra rep, I just imagine, like, and I've done this for years to be fair, like my whole family, or, you know, the people that I love and care about the most, are being held hostage by terrorists, and they're all at gunpoint, you know, got guns to my family's head, and they're going,
if you don't get one more rep now, we're gonna pull the fucking trigger.
Trust me, that will work. The one that I use for my clients who are maybe new to the team, who, you know, obviously we don't know each other well enough just yet, and before I say something like that, they're probably thinking, who the fuck is this guy? Who have I signed up to? I might use the million pound analogy instead, where it's a case of, if I was there with you in the gym and I said, get one more rep and I'll give you £1 million and guarantee you get one more rep. That would work quite well, but I think the family one, family about to die one, works quite well for me anyway, personally. So when you think, you know, that you're at your limit, you're probably not. You know, when you think you're lean, you're probably not. You've probably got another 10 pounds to go. When you think that you're at the back end of your building phase, you're probably not. You've probably got a bit more to go. When you think you finished your set on the hack squat or the chest press, you're probably not. You've probably got 1 or 2 more reps to go, okay? There's always more there. Which then kind of goes on to the next slide, which is a little bit contradictory to the previous one, but more isn't always better. And this is what made me realize during my, you know, prep, this time around, especially during obviously the prep, the dieting side of it, that I didn't do more cardio than 60 minutes per week for the entirety of the prep. Okay, albeit it was 27 weeks, so it's a longer prep compared to maybe like a 12-week diet that I've done in the past. But that meant that cardio didn't have to be ramped up to a stupid amount. Okay, more cardio, more sets, more food restriction. Everything was pretty easy for prep, okay? So that was a big like realization for me, that doing more cardio, which I've done I've done 7 60 minutes a week, you know, every single day for 60 minutes a week. That was hell. 3 years ago, I think it was. You know, I hated myself. I just ended up skinny as well. You just end up losing too much size. So more doesn't always mean better. You know, it doesn't automatically mean better results. You know, being strategic, having time, and being patient is what's better. Sometimes progress comes from doing less, but obviously just doing it right as well. And obviously giving yourself a good enough time frame to actually do it within. And again, this will go into another video, that your start position for a prep will dictate how hard or how easy it is. Which coincidentally takes us into our next one. Your start point will dictate your difficulty. Okay, so how hard your diet feels will depend on what's, you know, part of the building phase that you started in. If you're going to the back end of a build and you've had a really, you know, just dirty, sloppy bulk, and you're fat, and your digestion's shit, and your foods are just all over the place, chances are the diet's going to feel just as hard. Okay, the leaner, the stronger, and the more consistent you are, you know, in terms of your foundation, the smoother the fat loss and the prep will be. Okay, so this is what I'll always say, like, treat your off season, your building phase, like you would your prep, because you'll just make it easier and easier time and time that you do it again. If you dirty bulk and you get super fat and your body's a mess and your hormones are all out of tune, prep's going to be so hard. You're going to have to be doing so much cardio, you're going to have to take off so much body fat, it's just not going to be productive at all. And again, another point that we've already covered within this video, but time is your biggest tool. Okay, time changes everything for me. You can't rush building muscle, you can't necessarily rush stripping body fat effectively. You can, but again, this is where it will compromise with your actual physique. Anyone, you know, a lot of people can lose body fat quite quick, but at the detriment of you'll lose that tissue that you've worked hard for to build as well. So it's just trying to, you know, strike the balance. So the longer that you give yourself, the greater the result. And obviously with coaching nowadays, you'll see coaches saying, oh, you know, coaches giving you like a 20-week timeline for a diet, or 30-week timeline for a diet. I can get you shredded in, 8 weeks, 12 weeks. I'm sure they can get you shredded in 8 or 12 weeks. But first of all, you're gonna lose a lot of muscle mass within that time. Second of all, it's gonna be fucking hard. You're gonna be doing stupid amounts of cardio, very low food, and just hating life in general, and your training's gonna be shit. And third of all, from a psychological standpoint, if you're going so aggressive for like 8 to 12 weeks, trying to take off as much body fat as you can by doing all of this shit, you can imagine what the psychological effects are going to be and the rebound is going to be like after it. You're going to fucking be like, well, I've just absolutely battered myself for 8 to 12 weeks. People are going to relapse really, really badly. They're going to eat shit, they're going to lose habits, they're going to just lose self-control. Whereas if you do it over a longer period, here's my breath, here I am losing my breath. If you do it over a longer period, dieting doesn't feel like you're dieting, if done correctly. Okay, it's the plain and simple of it. Time rewards those who stay patient and consistent. Everyone wants a quick result, but they might get that quick result, but they'll fucking hate life afterwards. Excuse my language during this video. This is not like me to swear so much, because I'm passionate about it. And then, like, the perspective as a coach it gave me as well. You know, competing gave me perspective. You know, obviously I've done multiple diets and I've coached, you know, over 300 people in dieting phases and building phases. But now I can relate even more so in terms of the psychological, you know, implications that might come with it. The low days where you don't feel good, you know, the timeline when it's long and it feels like it's forever away. I can massively relate to that now, and I've obviously got a few guys competing next year as well, which is incredible. So, you know, having me walk the walk, it now makes me an authority and, you know, someone can relate to when they do go through a building phase for you know, a bodybuilding competition, or they do go through a prep and they're 2 weeks out, and I know exactly how psychologically and physiologically that they're going to be feeling. It also builds a lot of trust as well from coach to client relationship, you know, because people want to listen to someone who's walked the walk. And this is why I competed this year, because obviously I prepped Harry, my client, 3 years ago for his first show. And, you know, we did really well. He came second in an untested event as a natural. However, I did feel like a little bit of a fraud, you know, backstage, entering him into a competition, which I didn't realize was a, you know, untested show. I thought it was a natural show. So again, he already went in on a slight disadvantage, even though he still came second and beat 5 guys that were assisted, which is cool. But I just felt a little bit like a fraud. So I wanted to do bodybuilding, not only for myself, but for my guys and my people on the team and for future clients who come on board and compete. So that was the biggest thing for me as well, is to have walked the walk. And not just walked it and dipped my toe in and just be like, yeah, I've done it, and got like, you know, 7th place. Actually doing well within bodybuilding as well. So prep didn't just make me a better athlete, it made me a better coach, because I've lived the process my clients go through day to day. And I always say this to my guys, I would never in a million years ask anyone on my team to do something that I've not done myself. That's one thing that I'll always, you know, massively ground myself with and on, is that if I've not done it, I'm not letting a client do it. Okay, if a client's doing 7 cardio sessions a week, it's because I've done it. If a cardio's eating 5,000 calories a day, it's because I've done it. You know, any decision that I make with one of my guys on the team, I've done it. I'll never be like, okay, let's maybe try this technique this week. I've not tried it myself, but it might work. I would never ever do that in a million years. And that's something that I will massively, you know, take a lot of pride in as a coach, that I've done most things. So I know what works and I know what doesn't. And that is the video. As always, if you are someone who is looking to start the new year in, you know, the best position possible, and you're looking to work with someone who maybe will get you into photo shoot condition, maybe you'd like to do your own bodybuilding prep, please, as always, click the link in the bio, fill out the inquiry form, and we can book in for a call. And I hope you enjoyed this video. I'll see you in the next one.